Thank you for joining us in this session today. As Dick said, I manage a group called Fabricating Technology. I'm out of the Global R&D Center for Alcoa. I've been with them with about 25 years now, going to be 26 next week, so glad to be here. What I'll do is I'll start by giving you a little bit of history about the company so you have a context for the challenges that I'm going to talk about later on. So what I would like to do is just ask in general, when you think about Alcoa, I think in general people would say aluminum, that's it, right? But Alcoa is a little bit more than aluminum, and I think hopefully my first couple of slides will provide that context here. So we've been around for 125 years. We were actually the inventors of the original aluminum process. We're still doing it the same way. We're going down a path of rethinking how to change that, but just the fact that we've been doing it for 125 years, it says something about the company. The point I was trying to make earlier on is that it's not only about aluminum. We see ourselves as suppliers of value-added products made out of light metals, aluminum, titanium, nickel as well. And then on the upstream side, we do supply, we do the mining, we do the refining, and we do the smelting, so we still have our strengths on the primary side of the products. We are located in about 30 countries now, 200 plus locations, and roughly about 60,000 employees worldwide. And to give some more context about the diversity that we face in our business, if you look at the right-hand side of the slide is where it all begins. So you talk about, starting with bauxite, which is the ore, and then doing the mining, the refining, the smelting. That's where you get the basic aluminum out of the process, right? So that's all the upstream part, which is the GPP, which is global primary products. It's an extremely highly energy-intensive side of the business, and my colleague, who's going to be speaking a little bit later, comes from the power side of the business, and he can give you a sense of how he's been dealing with companies like Alcoa. The midstream business is Global Rolled Products business, GRP, and this is where we make aluminum sheets and plates. We also make some bonded products where they're layered aluminum sheets for different applications. And the markets that we serve there are automotive, aerospace, and some industrial products. So some of you have been in touch with the latest announcements from Ford about the F-150, which is all aluminum. We've been partnering with them on those sides. And with the aerospace market, we've been around for quite some time. The downstream business is the most diverse segment. We have 5 different business units that comprise of the EPS group, and that's the Engineered Products and Solutions group. And as listed there, the first one is the fastening systems, where we have highly engineered fasteners that actually go on airplanes. There are thousands of these on every airplane that you fly. Very highly engineered systems. Power and propulsion is where we make non-aluminum products. We have engine blades and turbine blades that are made out of titanium and nickel. With wheels and transportation, we have forged wheels that if you could see any of the 18-wheelers out there, you might see an Alcoa wheel on it. So we do make that as well. And some other transportation products for rail car and automotive. Building and constructions, a lot of the commercial products that you see on buildings that are made out of aluminum extrusions, for example, windows, doors, framing, we do have a business there. And then forgings and extrusions is where we actually make a lot of aerospace and automotive parts and industrial parts out of aluminum forgings. So very diverse end of the business there. And one of the things our chief executive has been pointing out lately is that, if you really look at the value-added stream, it's really the downstream side of the business. So if you can see, there's, a large percentage of our profits actually come from the downstream operations. So that gives you some context on what Alcoa is. And I won't go through every one of these, but we've started back in 1886 with just very basics in terms of the products. You talk about cookware and such, and then we quickly moved into automotive, aerospace applications in the 40s, 50s. The soda can that you're drinking your Pepsi out of, that was one of the innovations from partnering with companies that make that. Then there was an aerospace boom in the 80s with the space shuttle and the Airbus 380 as well. And then lately, if you can see on the right-hand side, we have been in the oil and gas business with aluminum tubing, pipes rather, the Ford F-150. There's an aluminum bottle that's out there. And then in terms of defense industries, we also have the largest single-piece forging that goes underneath these tanks in battle. So it gives you some context of where we have been key players in bringing aluminum to the market. So the topic today is more along the lines of automation. So what I've done here is to describe where Alcoa as a company is going, what our journey has been so far, and what our vision is. So if you focus on the bottom left side of the screen, the traditional, your ISA 95 pyramid, automation is one piece of our larger journey. And what I've done here is to show how that fits into our vision for what we are calling smart manufacturing. But automation is the key provider of the integrated information that we need in order to be smart in manufacturing. Having said that, we have a significant effort going on the right-hand side of the screen where we have what we're calling the first phase of smart manufacturing, which is the information side of things. And this is where you're talking about smart sensor, you're talking about data integration. We've heard some themes before as well, that if you don't really get all this data together in one place, integrated in a nice package, you really can't do much with that information. So it's only data, it's not really information. So that's the first piece on the lower right of it. And once you've passed that stage, now you can start doing analytics, you can start doing modeling, you can do inter-process control, and so on. So our vision is to get to that stage. Automation is one piece of it, and standardization around automation is also critical as a result of that. The way we are going about this is that we actually have several business unit-driven pilots at key locations, and they are going ahead with implementing automation systems with smart manufacturing in mind. So that's where really the focus is. In terms of where we are in the process, if you look at the left-hand side where the upstream and the continuous processes are listed, that business is the most mature in terms of implementing automation standards and going down the path of smart manufacturing phase one, which is the data integration, visualization piece. And there's a colleague I have in the room who's going to talk tomorrow about how they're leveraging the integrated data for analytics. But that's by far the most mature segment in that. And they've been able to deploy globally at the refineries and smelting operations some of these standard solutions. The other two business segments, because of the challenges in the diversity of the business, there are pockets of automation and excellence. There are plants that are way ahead. There are plants that are, that still have a lot of room for growth. But these pockets of excellence do exist, and both in the control arena as well as some of the phase two types of things where I talk about analytics and advanced control. But we have gone down the path of developing the discrete automation standard strategy for those two businesses, and we've just been on that journey for about a year now. And those standards are being put in place as we speak. On the global role products, we do have a couple of pilots that have been successfully implemented to complete the phase 1 of smart manufacturing with the data integration and visualization. And for the EPS, the discrete business, a lot of those pilots are going to be in place by the end of this year. So that takes me to my, the meat of the presentation is around challenges. And again, we've heard a lot of these challenges in the previous panel session as well as some yesterday. And I'll give you some, details of those from a standpoint of how our company sees those challenges to be. And before I get that, I just want to briefly mention that we talk about challenges also in terms of why is it that we need to standardize on systems. So one of the things we did was to articulate that across our businesses and say, here are the key indicators, the key things that we need to talk about when we look at standardization. So why are we standardizing? Well, some of these items you've seen, they're like very, very commonly discussed. But the two key ones that I've got on that list is, integrate intelligence and dynamic decisions. And these are the two key things that we are after really as part of the standardization. So as you standardize systems, you have common solutions, you are able to get to those dynamic decision-making points very soon, and you do them more effectively. We are not pushing standards at the lower levels of the ISA 95 simply because we have a very diverse group of businesses, and we can't afford to have standards at the level 0, level 1 space. And that would be foolish, I think, in our opinion. And so we are focusing on level 2 and 3, which are more data-driven levels, information-driven levels, intelligence-driven levels. And the third piece is, how do we standardize? So we had a process that was put in place last year. We began by doing an extensive review of a lot of the automation suppliers and having our businesses do the evaluation and select standard suppliers for their business. So that was the first piece. And then based on those preferred suppliers, we developed standards across our operating locations. And then this is not going to be a rip and replace. Obviously, you got a lot of install base. So we've asked the businesses to do a multi-year migration plan, getting from the current state to the target state as they would have defined for the next 3 to 5 years. And the other key piece of that is governance. And this is where I think the people aspect comes in. How do you actually take these standards, implement them, and then govern them in a sense of, how do you maintain them? How do you make sure that you're actually adhering to the policies that are being set forth by the strategy? So the challenges that we see are in really three segments: business, culture, and talent. And I just have a slide for each of these. So when we talk about the business challenges, I was in a conversation with a plant manager about 6 months ago, and he, very pointedly says that, you're asking me to implement new technologies and all that stuff, but I got a roof to fix. Am I going to put my money on fixing my roof, or am I going to get new technology to implement in my plant? Very realistic question, right? So it's a question about short-term investment versus long-term investment. So you need to have some idea from the businesses what their strategy is for long-term. And we run into this capital spending issue. I'm sure other companies do. Capital is not available freely, so you have to make wise decisions. Buy-in and ownership, and this goes all the way from the people who are practicing on the floor, all the way up to management. We need the businesses to own the strategy. We need the businesses to own this journey of automation and smart manufacturing. And that becomes a difficult conversation at times. So, you can't have a central strategy that is not owned by the businesses because you're going to fail, if you don't have that ownership. Value articulation. What does this do for my business? Why should I standardize? Why should I buy the state-of-the-art, visualization system. What does it get for me? So articulation of that is fairly important. And I think depending on the size of the business, that conversation could take different flavors. So we've struggled with that a little bit across the businesses. The next piece is around culture. I talked about the downstream businesses that we have in the company. They have been sort of growing through acquisition. So we have businesses that have a lot of manufacturing diversity. None of the two plants or the two businesses have a lot in common. So the question that is being asked is, how do you standardize around that? So if you have 5 different distinct businesses that have totally different products, different processes, where do you standardize? And that's one of the reasons why we focused on level 2 and 3, because after 0 and 1, you start becoming less dependent on the process itself, and it's more about the information. Install base, change is hard, right? So again, when I joined the company, we used to use Macintoshes at that point, and then there was a corporate strategy that says we're going to use, PCs. And people want to hold on to what they're used to and what they're effective at doing. You change systems on them, they think that they'll become less effective, and so on and so forth. So, if you have a large install base in automation equipment, even at the level 2, level 3 level, it becomes a difficult conversation. Embracing new technology, this is again sort of goes along with the install base. Now we are talking about a growth in information systems that is just so exponential, and there's this resistance to adapting to that. They'll find people in the plant still trying to write stuff down on paper and then pass that paper along to the next operation. Well, there's a system in place, but it's not being used effectively. So there's a little bit of resistance there. We have, and this is to my next slide, which is the people aspect. People who are in the operations, who come from the baby boomer generation versus the new talent that's coming up. You have that tension of being able to use new technology. And the last one, which I think is the most important one for me, is on the talent side. So, you talk about expertise that exists in the company. You talk about the loss of that expertise. We have a lot of people that are retiring very rapidly. To give an example, in my group alone, 30% of my staff has retired or is going to be retiring in the span of 12 months. And one of the challenges there is that, when you stop looking forward and bringing in new talent on a regular basis, you run into this issue where all of a sudden you have people with 30, 35 years of experience leaving, and you have nobody else to train. Acquisition is another issue where the students who are coming out of colleges today, they have very different expectations. It's the age of instant gratification. So you can't really, have an excuse that, okay, your software is going to take 3 days to install. They want it now because they have it on their phones, right? So that's the piece. So if we interview people in an old manufacturing organization like Alcoa, we have that challenge. How do we attract? And then retention is the same way. I mean, with all the companies moving towards where they don't offer retirement plans, we have an old manufacturing type of infrastructure and an organization that goes with it. How do you retain that talent? There's always opportunities out there in this space. Organizational effectiveness, we heard some of the previous speakers today and yesterday talk about the integration of information technology and operational technology. Whether that's the right model or not, we need to make that evaluation. In some cases it is, in many cases it is, but in some smaller businesses, maybe it's not the case, right? We, within Alcoa, on the upstream side, on the primary product side, we have an organization that's very fully integrated between information technology and operational technology. The other businesses don't, and there's that tension. where do you come together? So one of the reasons why we focus on level 2 and 3 is, again, level 2 is more of the operational technology, level 3 is more of the information technology. And that forces that tension to happen. And hopefully we'll get past that. Execution and governance. This is, again, an age-old question. Do you centralize this kind of an effort, or do you give autonomy to your businesses? The more diversity you have in your organization, this will become more of a challenge. But yet, what we have found in a lot of the benchmarking that we've done is that even if you have business-based centers of excellence for automation, you still benefit from having a central organization that sort of drives the thought process and sort of brings things together at an enterprise level. So those are basically the challenges that I've listed, and I have to believe that the reason we are all in this room is because we are optimists, right? I mean, challenges bring opportunities, and as Churchill said, we have to look that way. So I believe that most of us in this room are optimists, and I hope to have great conversations about that. So.